Our guest today is Danny Morrow. He is a co-founder and chief innovation officer at Extend. Danny, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Super excited to be on. Big fan.
Danny, could you briefly introduce yourself to listener and we'll get started?
Yeah, for sure. So I am one of the co-founders. I'm the actually initial CTO of Extend, just recently moving into the role of Chief Innovation Officer, where I can you really address my two loves, both product and technology. And so Extend is a platform that helps thousands of small and medium-sized businesses manage their spend, leveraging the power of virtual credit cards, using the actual card that they already have. So rather than having to go to a new bank to get new functionality, Extend is a partner to banks. We offer them technology so they can offer a better experience to their end users.
You mentioned that chief innovation officer combines product and technology. What does the role look like? Why move from like CTO to chief innovation officer?
It's certainly something my entire career that I've always bridged across. So I studied product design in college, but that was much more of a physical industrial design approach, but really thinking about human-centric design. All the things that we talk about design thinking today, we were studying those many years ago. And I graduated and it was the original dot-com boom, and I decided I wanted to be a designer, and the internet seemed pretty cool. And so I jumped into that and was always designing sites and products, though we didn't really call them that back then, with a human-centric, user-centric design point of view. And that was my career for some time. And then I took the leap into focusing more on technology and building digital products, digital experiences. And I actually worked for myself for 13 years prior to founding Extend as a consultant here in New York, building all sorts of platforms for consumers, for luxury goods brands, etc. Always, again, though, from that technology, thinking about product, thinking about usability. And when we launched Extend, you need someone who can build things. So that was me. And so I grew that team. We're now 85 people. I grew that team from the ground up. I wrote all the initial lines of code, brought on folks I knew, hired people so that we could have an engineering team that was still product centric. And that's always been the key to me. Everyone has to be thinking about product. Everyone has to think about the end user all the time. And so this move into this new role where it's less about managing the day-to-day workings of an engineering team, but really focusing on what innovation can we bring to our bank partners, what innovations can we bring to the market as a whole, to our network issuing partners, to our issuing processor partners, to our end users. That's really where my sweet spot is. And you can't do one without the other. You can't do one without the design. You can't think about how someone's using things, and the technology needs to enable that. And all those pieces need to be working together in harmony. And it's really my role at the company to be sitting at that intersection. That's where my career has led me. So it's a good sweet spot for me.
The last chief innovation officer I met, he was a founder as well. So I wonder if it's like kind of the natural progression of a product minded, creative technologist type founder that still wants to be in the game, but needs to be able to blend the different disciplines and coordinate that. What your story sounds like is James Dyson's story, and a lot of listeners, longtime listeners of the show, should know that I am a huge fanboy. I have both of his biographies. Like, this guy's so prolific. He peaked in like the late '90s and had a biography, an autobiography, and then he peaked again with all his work on developing product engineering talent, and did another biography. But that was his whole thing, where he's like, he started out as a product designer, mostly focused on industrial design, but he had an urge to like impact the technology that he was designing as well. And so he, in his words, moonlighted as an engineer. But once you have the idea, it only takes 6 months to learn the technology. I think for you, like, when did that moment happen in your product design career where you felt like this urge to get more involved in the actual implementation of the tech stack and the coding and everything like that? Because kind of come to that conclusion as well, especially heavily influenced by James Dyson. And I also see it as like this natural progression for very innovation minded designers. Do you remember that moment, and like what caused you to like get out of the craft of the actual like industrial design and getting into the actual tech side of it?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a specific moment. I always did technology in my career. I actually learned computer programming when I was in middle school, and so learned Logo. It was my initial foray as a 12-year-old into computing logic. I actually took very few CS classes in college because I really was very interested in thinking about how did people use things, and that felt very removed. And so, really, my product design major, as a mixture of mechanical engineering and art, really scratched my kind of creative and nerd side at the same time, and so that was very rewarding. When I went into designing sites, I've always followed my heart of I want to know. I don't know if I have the experience to do it, but it's passionate to me. Let me learn. Let me take that challenge. It inspires me. So I didn't have an art degree, but I decided to be a designer. And then I got to the internet, and back then, of course, front end presentation layer was really all rendered on the back end. There was very little interactivity. And so actually, what I picked up on was Flash, which is a really new technology back then. It had come from Director at Macromedia, and that was a way to actually do interactivity on the front end that interests me. And then figuring out, okay, and how can I make that data driven? Because I didn't want to make one off things that couldn't be reused, and the sites that we were building were data driven sites. And so, how could I make this interactivity on a data driven site? No one knew that technology, so I had to learn it and figure it out. And there were a bunch of us where I was working who were learning to figure that technology out and how could it play into the whole web. And then as the web grew, technology grew, you can make things more interactive. Steve Jobs stood on stage and held up an iPhone, and suddenly there was no more flash work. But it was like really, really cool because you could do magic of putting technology interactivity on a computer in someone's pocket. And that really felt like you were doing some kind of sorcery. Right? Despite, and I'll say, even knowing now how to build iOS apps, I spent a long period of time building mobile apps in my career. Still seems like magic to me. Different type of magic than building something for the web. And I think it's because the immediacy of it completely blurs the line between the technology and the product. And so that was always interested in me. It was not a new algorithm. It wasn't this or that. It was really about, can I make something that gave joy to someone using a product or solved a problem using a product? And so it was a natural, I don't think there was one, to your question, there was not one aha moment of, oh, now I realize I need to do this in order to get to here. It was a natural progression. It was me naturally trying to keep learning, doing something I didn't know how to do. I'll say the first iOS project I took, one of my longtime clients asked me, could I build it? I had not the first idea about how to code Objective-C, but that was going to be my mission. And so I learned it and built a fantastic product from that. And so that's always my journey along the way. And that's how we came to Found Extend. We had never founded a company. It just seemed like an opportunity that was going to be product driven, that was going to have some cool technology, that had some things I didn't know about. Let's jump in and figure that out. So I think it's that itch that has got me to where I am today.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go back like saying it's like, hey, once you have the idea, you can learn the tech, right? Once you've realized like, oh, this is the intended like experience I want to make. Okay, what technology stacks do we have that could enable this, and then go learn it. So for me, it's taking courses on React because that's like the best way to make design systems right now because it matches with design tools. And it just never gets old when you see something you imagined like several months ago, like acting in code in the QA environment. It just never
So
gets
it's
old,
certainly
does it?
it's very magical to have something that you thought of and come to life. I'll take it the next step in founding a company. You have this idea that is not out there. You bring it to life, and then you takes it to the next level. Is you then have other people who also see the magic there and who want to join you making that magic. So that's been something that's really, really compelling. And then my next level of growth and learning has been how do you take that design and creativity to a whole company? How do you build a culture? How do you find people who believe in what you were believing in and push for it as hard, if not harder, than what you push for it to start with? So there's stops along the way that make that all compelling and rewards. It has to be right. I think we all get into creative careers because that's who we are. It excites us to build new things and excites us to learn new things, do things that we haven't done before, right? Not just keep doing the same repetitive task, but we want to figure out something new. We want to learn and grow. And so this whole my whole career and this whole journey as a co-founder has really been, scratching that itch the whole way.
I used to be really frustrated earlier in my career when someone would say, "Oh, work your magic," right? Or, "Hey, UX this or design this." There's definitely this zeitgeist of that, like creative people, especially like one of the disciplines I explored was a film. You see a Christopher Nolan or someone that continuously is like a heavy hitter. Everything they make resonates with people. It's magic. And that used to frustrate me a lot. But I think like what your comment just sparked is that I think there's an innate human need to want to have the magic. Like they don't want to know how it happened. They just want the result. And it just sounds like even like employees that like join companies, they don't want to know about your amazing strategy and all the work and rigor you put into figuring out what the right problem is to solve. Like they just want to like, hey, wow, this product is magical. I want to work on it. And that's all they care about. Is that something like you've noticed in your career? That it's less about like talking about and your work and more about just showing the results?
Oh, yeah, I see your point. I'm not sure because I think who we've hunted for and who we've tried to attract to this company is people who can really believe in all those pieces and that curiosity. Oh, yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
piece to say, I want to be part of something that's magical. I want to be part of something that's growing quickly and it has that excitement. That's certainly always part of why anyone would join a successful startup, right? There is that kind of that mentality of, oh, this is going somewhere. I'm going to be part of this journey. That's very exciting. But I think who we've looked for are folks who are curious, who actually do want to look behind the curtain and understand what makes this tick. It's these people who are excited to take things apart and put them back together again. And that's what really gets them going. And to me, that's creativity just under a different name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not limited to someone who's going to be doing beautiful layouts or doing wonderful process flows or user stories, right? An engineer should be thinking about that. A salesperson should be thinking about it. All the people at Extend are always thinking creatively, how can I push this? And they need to because otherwise they're bored. And so I think the people that we found to join us and the people that we hunt to and court so that they do come join us really have to have that constant need for growth and learning and creativity. But again, because my background is not that you're a designer, do your magic, you're the creative one, but everyone else is just the rote work. That's ridiculous. Like it should bleed beyond all those lines. And everyone should have the opportunity to do their thinking and their creativity and bring something new to the table.
I should call this podcast "How to Be a Wizard."
That
Right.
would be pretty right. And what I think is interesting to me, if you call it that way, right? How to be a wizard. It sounds like it's something that is unknowable. It's unlearnable. To me,
Mm-hmm.
a wizard is not something. You either are a wizard or Harry Potter doesn't become a wizard. He's a wizard straight away. Um, that's not how I view any of this, and that's certainly not what I was taught. It's certainly not what I've experienced in my career. It's like if you choose to become a wizard, you can. You have to work it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to drop in your lap, but it is all learnable. It's all practicable. It's just about flexing those muscles enough until it becomes second nature.
Yeah, like when I graduated school, I went to a very design theory type of design program where it was more focused on framing the problem and cognitive psychology and very UX heavy. I was not great at like layout and visual design, so I just never. I think that's what people believe. Like the most popular epics, like storytelling, like oh Jedi's like they're born with it and they're sensitive to the force, and yeah, wizards, they're just like magic sensitive, right, in the Harry Potter universe. And so we just assume like people just have innate talent, right, an innate inclination for the discipline. And what I learned really quickly was that don't confuse the discipline with the individual, right? It's just a discipline. And Tiger Woods was in a high chair watching his dad hit golf balls when he was a baby. He just had more time. His 10,000 hours were just moved sooner. And Mozart's dad was a music professor, teacher, so he was learning music theory in the crib. And so he wasn't just innately talented. He just had more time on task and intentional practice. And I hired a coach, spent some money during 2020, and after 6 months, it was like, oh, This isn't magic. This is a craft, and if you spend the time practicing, it turns out, and also it turns out if you are good at something, it's more enjoyable, right? And then to other people, it looks effortless. But yeah, it's like I think that's magic just seems innate, but I totally resonate with that. That if you want to take the time, just take 6 months, practice, and you could do it too.
Yeah, I think people are always worried about doing something they don't know how to do. But if it's going to go, give it a shot. And to your point, you just have to put in that time, put in that work. I completely agree with that. I've never been the best visual designer. I think people think, oh, a designer's job is just make it pretty, make it look
Mm-hmm.
good. That's never been my approach to design. I've always hung on to that Steve Jobs quote about design is not how it looks, but how it works. How it looks plays in part of that, but that's not the only piece of that. And really listening thoughtfully to and thinking thoughtfully about what your users want, what they maybe want and don't know how to verbalize, what they're asking for, but just not presuming that you are the smartest or the be all end all of knowing what these things are, but really turning to your user to discover what they're asking for or what they're saying without asking for it. That's really where I've seen success. And it's the same thing. That is practice with empathy. That's practice with psychology. It's practicing listening to people, which is that is also a creative design skill. So all these things come together, and it's just about how do you use them. You don't presume that your task is only this task. You presume that that you cover the whole thing, and you're just going to add your creative input where it's going to be valuable.
I'm really pushing the metaphors now, but I've come to the
Okay, let's
conclusion
go with
that
it.
most design yeah most everyone thinks that like a designer is, and I think engineers are treated the same way, right? We're asked to like t-shirt size like a bulleted list from a product manager, and it's just like you're an engineer, like you should know what the effort is, and engineers like don't have any requirements, so like all these estimates are very like conservative, right? We don't have designs yet. How are we possibly going to estimate this? And so we're treated like we should just have all the answers, like should be able to give recommendations. But I think we're more tailors, right? Like when a tailor custom cuts you a suit, they measure your inseam and your waist and all the different measurements to make the perfect cut of like fabric to make the suit. I feel like a designer is more of a tailor.
Interesting. And so they are reacting to the what they're being put in front of them and then adjusting along the way. The agile process of tailoring
Yeah,
is what you're implying.
yeah, exactly. So when I got married, my dad gifted me a custom suit, and so the tailor he's measuring me, but at the same time he's like talking about what's your goal with this suit? How do you want to feel? What's like the style? Like that? What's like
Mm-hmm.
what do you want to communicate? Right? It's like this expert that is using pretty well established patterns. Yeah, that's definitely how I feel. I don't know if it's distinctive to agile, right? Because I think James Dyson doesn't do agile. He does like waterfall to the max. Very strong
Okay.
opinions, but they make stuff that people like. And yeah, that's just what I thought when you were mentioning your job is to understand like their hidden desires and trying to like elicit like what they want rather than I know all the principles of design and I know all the cognitive psychology. We have a persona that like an archetype that we could base our designs off of. We know what to do, but it's rather actually establish like a level of tact with the problem.
Yeah, it's definitely a two-way street there. And I think what's interesting, actually, what made me think of what you said when you said Taylor is the people we look to bring on our team. I think of them all as craftspeople, right? They take true pride in their work and they want to deliver that's something that's great. They think that their work reflects on themselves. So how they deliver their end product is a reflection of themselves. Maybe it's a better way to say that. And so to that end, you pick people, who are curious, pick people who want to learn new things, give them a challenging problem, and you know that they're going to want to deliver something they're proud of. You're kind of almost guaranteed that you're going to have, in your example, a good suit, in our example, a good product, because we've given people this opportunity to do what they enjoy, do it well, and also keep learning. And so I think that has been something that has been successful for us as a company is to really keep pushing in that direction. How can we continually feed the curiosity and intellect of the people that we've brought on the team, right?
So, can you walk me through the story of how you decided to start Extend?
Yeah, for sure. So, as I mentioned, I had been working at a consultancy here in New York City for 13 years prior to Extend. Extend's been around for, at this point, nearly 7 years from today. And so prior to that, I was a consultant building all sorts of digital things. And the CEO is someone I've known well for a good period of time. We're good friends. And he was previously at American Express and had been a bit of an expert in the digital B2B card payment. And when he was leaving American Express for family reasons, we were talking about what can we do next. And I told him, I don't know, but working for myself, that's been the best choice I've ever made. So let's figure out how you can do that too. And so we put our heads together, and I think there were some ideas floating around about what could you use virtual cards for. And traditionally, virtual cards had been used for more in an enterprise business context. They're not new technology, and pretty much every bank had an offering to enterprise clients. But they weren't available to small businesses, they weren't available to medium-sized businesses because they took too long to implement. Meaning that a bank could onboard a new corporate customer maybe 2 or 3 a month at most, because they're very time consuming and there's all sorts of processes that have to happen at the bank. There's all sorts of technology that need to be integrated. And it just, so if you launched with 40 or 50 companies a year, the bank was looking great. And as a result, then this is an expensive proposition. We need to make sure that we pick winners, which is never a good solution for finding innovation, right? They have to know the outcome before they go in. And so they would pick only the biggest companies in order to onboard them for virtual cards. And so that meant small businesses, medium-sized businesses, they were just left out because they couldn't guarantee to spend enough money to make it worth the bank's time. And we put our heads together and said, what happens if we actually enabled you to send virtual cards from the existing card that you had? That was one of the big friction points. The onboarding into a virtual card program was very slow. And what we've learned really is that in fintech, onboarding is half the magic. How can you make people just be able to pick up your product, they hear about it, they try it out, it works? That's really a way to run. And so the two of us figured, okay, he has great relationships in the B2B spend space. I know how to build a product. Now let's put peanut butter and chocolate together and see what magic happens. As it would happen, our third partner, our third co-founder, was also leaving Amex at the time, and Amex gave them placement services, and he was sitting in the office right next door and would stick his head in every now and then. And our CEO knew him from Amex, and he would say, "What are you guys working on? Hey, that sounds pretty interesting." And one thing led to another. He's like, "No, what if I'm going to come along for this journey?" And what was really powerful is the three of us, despite having never done a true startup, we had a huge amount of business experience. And that business experience did not necessarily overlap. So the three of us had a huge amount of coverage in terms of what knowledge we brought to the table and what experience we brought to the table. And that gave us all the confidence to convince ourselves, to convince our families that we're going to go on this crazy journey. And so that's 7 years ago. And then we had to go out and convince another couple of banks, like, hey, by the way, we're just three guys in an office. Do you trust us? Because B2B is all about trust. It's all about relationships, right? It's not like we plaster the subway with a bunch of ads and hope that if we spend $50 or $100 per customer, we can acquire them. And our customers are banks. And so they have to trust that the technology we're bringing is solid, that they want to use our product, that we're going to be around in 6 months or a year or 5 years. If they want to introduce their customers to us, we have to have our ducks in a row. And so that's how that process came along. It's just been relationships. It's about the three of us doing all the pieces. And then as we grew and saw that it was really going to be an opportunity, we raised some funds, and then we could start hiring people that we knew and trusted to really grow the team. And that's how we got to, all these years later, 85 people and a really successful product, strong product market fit, a large number of banks that are using our product, large number of end users at those banks using our product, and continuing to grow. So it's amazing for me looking back. It's not, you hope that it's going to work out successfully that way, but I'm very much a pragmatist, very realist. You know how many startups fail. You know how tricky it is to get the work that it's going to take. And so everyone looks smart in hindsight, but it's amazing to think back at how we got to here.
Yeah, I forgot where I read it, but there was maybe I think it was one of those like famous like PDF letters on like startup success. It might have been like Mark Andreessen or something like that, but it talked about founder market fit, or I guess founder problem fit. Do you attribute a lot of your success? And that was like the gist of like your story. Do you attribute a lot of your success to the backgrounds of the founders of Extend? Like you didn't just find a problem. Like it's really easy to just find a problem and be like, oh, let's go solve this is a problem that you're acutely aware of the pain points, or at least one of your co-founders is, and you're also like passionate about solving it because you've experienced the pain, right?
Yep, and I think that's true. I think we came to this as, to your point before, we've already done our 10,000 hours in certain things, right? So we brought enough knowledge to the table to really understand the problem space. We also brought enough experience that we could go partner with the people we need to partner with, right? We're a B2B to B company, right? We have to partner with banks before we can get to our end corporates. That's our go-to-market, and we build products for banks. A bank is a big, slow-moving beast that has lots of gears inside of it. We need to understand how that worked. And I'm using the royal we, having frankly never worked in payments or cards before founding Extend. And so that was where my two other partners could lean in. I had already built successful digital products. So I could know, I have full confidence I know how to do this. Point me in the right direction, we'll build this. Right? So there was not a learning curve there. But I mentioned to you before, I would get bored if there's not a learning curve. I think most people get bored. You can't be creative with that. And so for me, the excitement was, how can I learn the card industry? How could I understand how it works today? How it could be different? How could I bring my years of experience to bear on things? I'm new to this world. What looks like things I'm familiar with? What does not? What patterns are just off to me? Do we talk in engineering about code smell? Like what just doesn't seem right? And why is it different here? We've solved certain problems with technology or with design in other areas a different way. Why would that not be true here for payments or for cards? And so bringing that experience to bear has been tremendously important in our success across the board, at least bootstrapping and getting the company running. And then at a certain point, it's about judgment. Who do you bring on? Who's going to help take that mantle and run with it farther, right? Because no founder takes this all the way to the finish line without your team.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's tremendously important who you bring on, who do you entrust, and who do you believe in, who believes in you and your vision to continue pushing this, because this is not something that's solvable by, 3 founders in a small office. We need a team to continue to push and develop and grow and innovate and come up with other great ideas, right? It's not only our great ideas anymore. And so it's kind of the next phase beyond initially getting off the ground. Once you prove you have a thing that works, once you prove that you are a founder who, as you said, a founder problem fit, and your solution kind of resonates, and that you know that if other challenges come up, you're the right person to figure that out. That's all good. But then you have to also turn to your team, and who do you bring on to keep forwarding that mission?
You seem like a pretty involved craftsperson. You care about the details. How did you learn to let go? Give it to the next group.
That is a very good challenge, or a very good question. I think it's all about trust, and you bring people on who you think are trustworthy, right? It's always, growing a team is always challenging. It's excellent to turn to folks that, if you have them in your network, to bring them on, but you can't always fill every job with everyone in your network. And so you then hope that you've built a culture and that you're attracting the right sort of talent. And then you teach them. And you teach them to, and then you're at a point where, oh, I know your idea may be slightly different than mine, but I've seen you produce good ideas. And so I don't have to be involved with every decision. I don't have to be involved with every detail. We love to sweat the details, but I also love to give it to my team to sweat the details and to come back with awesome solutions. So you have to, you know when it's time to roll up your sleeves and have that discussion. And you know that if I'm off busy doing something else, that the team is going to have your back. But that's a personal growth objective, I would say, right? That's something that a person who likes to sweat the details and be close to all those details has to learn to let go. Otherwise, you cannot possibly personally grow, and you can't possibly scale. It can't always be the one wizard, the one genius behind the tower who gives all the instructions. You have to teach people your thinking and trust in that they're going to understand that and bring their own creative mind to bear and come up with wonderful solutions as well.
And if you're really good at your job, you should know how to pick them, right? Like you should know how to evaluate talent. Really, I think that's like a good indicator, right?
In theory, I don't think any of that's ever 100%. If anyone had 100%, you'd be super genius level. But yes, you should recognize the traits that you're looking for, and you should make sure those are the right traits. And then it, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you find those folks, and then those folks are looking for additional people. Like it just, a culture doesn't come out of thin air. A culture is the people, right? Culture is not something that 5 bullet points dictates, right? The 5 bullet points typically capture the essence of that culture. But the thing that I would say, one of the things I'm most proud about Extend, never mind the product, never mind the business success, is the team that we built here and the culture that we built together. And coming into the office and seeing that physical manifestation, talking to people on Zoom, because we are quite hybrid, we're dispersed as well. Experiencing all of that, experiencing the goodness that people bring, the creativity, the excitement, the spark, the hard work. At a certain point, the founders have to exude all of that. But now we're a big enough company where that's in the air. And so then you also start to somewhat self-select for other people who want to be around that environment. And we have pretty solid no jerks policy here, and I think we love everyone at this company, and that just trickles down, right? You don't have to worry that you're going to hire someone bad because that's what everyone is looking for now. Everyone values that.
JB Chakowski, he's like probably one of the most quoted leaders on this show. He's the global head of QuickBooks, designed for QuickBooks, and he says that culture is a patine, right? If you look at someone that has like a well-worn wallet, a patine's like the signs of wear, right? And have a usage. And if you want to use like a UX term, it's like a desire line, right? Where it's showing how you like to use that object. And I think that really resonates with me because it's not about posters and bullet point and values. It's what are the signs of like what's the patine in the culture of like how you do things and how you choose to run a company.
It's certainly time driven for sure out of that, right? It's not something that you just wave a wand and it appears. It certainly has to be intentional. It can form without intentionality, but if you want it to be a strong culture, you have to be mindful. And just like any relationship, right? You have to be mindful of it. You have to put your effort into it. But it's the synonym of that is wear, right? Like is wear, but it's not wear because patina implies that over time it's gotten better.
It's
right?
more
It's
right.
it's marinated, it's gotten valuable. Like that, the outside has influenced it to become better. And I think that's definitely true of culture, right? That has to, it is not something that is dictated. It's impossible to dictate it. You can demonstrate it, but you can't dictate it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's tremendously important going back to all of these things that we've been talking about. You have to be surrounded by the right people. Those people have to believe in similar things to what you believe. No, obviously, no one believes your carbon copy set of beliefs, but there have to be some core beliefs that everyone holds to be true. There has to be some core desire of everyone wanting to learn and better themselves, curiosity, wanting to push themselves, caring for our customers, right? Having that empathy. And that empathy goes from our business development folks who are trying to sell to a bank, to our folks who are trying to ride along and explain to corporates why our product is good, to our customer success, to our designers, to our engineers, to our product folks across the board. You have to have that empathy. You have to keep wanting to learn because at a small startup, your job is what it is today is not necessarily what it's going to be tomorrow. Everyone keeps evolving. And I always say when we're interviewing to the wrong person, a startup is chaotic and not the right place because they don't know what they're going to be doing tomorrow. But to the right person who's excited by getting to touch so many different things, the cliche of wearing different hats, really getting to learn different experiences. Like for the right type of person, that is a dream world. And so it's about filling our team with those folks who are excited and passionate about all of those pieces.
So one of the reasons why I rebranded the podcast from the way of product design to just the way of product, right? The actual like craft and discipline of product is I watched the config talk from Brian Chesky from Airbnb and how he talked about how he's like he tried everything, all the best practices, the Silicon Valley product group, the squad model, and like hiring PMs and stuff like that. And then he just chose to design his own business operating model, his own SOPs. And they're doing pretty well as a business. And that taught me that I'm like, oh, there's no rules. It's like like a business, how you want to run it and like how you want to operate it is totally. You could go complete like custom mode if you wanted to. And then at the end of it, he bookends his talk with, "Hey, I might not be like a designer in like the way that everyone else thinks of design, but I design businesses." And so the conclusion to me was, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this, that um, the the discipline isn't the individual. Like people get hung up on like screen design, UI design as like the discipline is their identity, but it's just a discipline. There's other disciplines, and I wonder if like the natural progression into like leadership is like just you're just picking another discipline. You're still a designer, you're still an engineer. You're just designing engineering orgs at this point. You're just designing design orgs, or you're designing the business. Like that's a different discipline. You're still doing the job. Like your identity's not gone because you move up. You just chose a
Well,
different
and I think
game.
what I hear there is, yeah, how do you apply your creativity? How do you apply your empathetic mind? How do you apply your ability to observe things? How do you apply your ability to learn from things, your curiosity to want to keep learning? All those things, you could you could apply those things in nearly any job, right? And so if you want to keep growing, it's a requirement that you would keep expanding your skill set. And it would be a requirement to say, yeah, I'm good at listening to client feedback, so I adjust the design this way when I'm doing a UX layout. That is very adjacent skills to I'm listening to a end user and I'm adjusting a product flow this way. Or I'm listening to an employee or a team of employees and adjusting our process. They obviously, you learn a bunch of stuff that works and doesn't work. The longer you're in a set discipline, the more experience you can bring to bear. But I agree completely. I think there are certain muscles that you flex that are very similar. And I keep coming back to the scratching an inch. There are certain things that bring people enjoyment, right? Being creative, solving problems. You can do that in any discipline. It doesn't have to mean that if you're creative, you can only be doing visual layout, and that's the only way to be a creative person.
Yeah, like you don't have to be like official title designer to be creative. And if you even look at what design thinking is, it's really just a repackaging of abductive reasoning. Just the ability to identify connections between unrelated things, make a deduction on like what you think the connection is, and if you look at it that way, that's engineering thinking. That's basically just you are making abductions about how the world works or why a problem is the way it is, and then you're figuring out what vehicles you use to experiment and
Well,
solve
I
it.
think the key then, I think that you have to add to all of that, and it's not limited to design thinking or any of these other
Yeah,
patterns, is the feedback loop. How do you presume
yeah,
that you are not the be all end all arbiter? Your design, your decision, your thought process is the best handed down from above. It's the last answer. You have to put it into that feedback loop. You have to be ready to hear, okay, I put this into my users, I put this into people, and I found out I was wrong. And you have to be humble to experience that and say, yep, I heard this is wrong. This is not working. This part is working right. This part is not. Let's go through that iterative process again. And just keep looping on it until it's working. And I know here when we talk about process at Extend, we're constantly iterating on process. So it's never done, right? And that's great. We can optimize our agile process. And we can say we're gonna tweak some things the way, our product owner is going to sit with design, going to sit with engineers, get feedback straight away. We're going to launch something quickly. And we can cross that off the list of saying, yep, we're now doing better than we were before. But it's never finished. It doesn't mean you still can't get more feedback, can't get more outside inputs that then impact the process further down the road. And so I think that's what the key thing is. You have to have the creativity. You have to come up with some interesting ideas. But then you have to actually test them. And you have to make sure they give your intended output, and you have to be scientific, empathetic enough to be open minded enough so that when they either are working or are not, you're like, oops, my assumptions were wrong. Let me tweak this. Either my assumptions were wrong, my solution was wrong, any of these sort of things. Let's go back and give it another shot. Let's tweak what we have, and so it's even more correct.
A quote about humility that really helped me wrap my head around it, because I always thought humility was being the first one to crap on yourself in front of everybody. And then the reframe was that humility is just holding people in higher regard. Like you're holding the customer in higher regard in their opinions and their feedback. Do you feel like the tech industry has an entitlement problem with the success? Like they just feel entitled to be successful?
I would say it's human nature when you've been successful to not take that for granted. So I don't know that if it's an entitlement problem or it's a human problem that you've done good things, you do challenging work, you're smart, people tell you're smart, people tell you're successful. It's like, that makes sense. People tell it, I see myself. I think the important thing is to be intentional and remember that there's always improvement. And so I don't you say that has to be I don't think that's putting yourself down. That's just saying there's more headroom. There's more I can go up. And I think that's true from who we are as people. It's true from our work. We should all hold ourselves in very high expectations and say, yeah, I did this. Like having a high expectation doesn't mean you don't do a good job. It just means you recognize there's more to learn and grow, that you could do it better next time, not resting on your laurels. And so to me, that is what I think about humility, is that you don't have to broadcast it. Part of it is like, no, I'm going to do a good job, and it's going to be self-evident by what I do, doing a
Mm-hmm.
good job. And I'm going to be humble to know that I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to say wrong things. I can be right 90% of the time and wrong 10. That doesn't hurt me. And my goal is not 100% correct. My goal is, because unattainable, right? My goal is to be continually improving your process, continually improving your designs, continually improving your engineering, right? And keep learning. But it's all about moving forward. It's not about that. And the goalposts keep moving, and that's a good thing. That's what keeps it interesting.
Yeah, because you ideally want to just keep playing the game, right? We're in this because it's fun.
I agree. And
And,
I'm just going to keep
yeah.
getting better at it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like the ethos that, like what I'm reverse engineering from this conversation is that there's no such thing as done. There's no such thing as perfection. There's only continuously shipping and iterating. There's um, surround yourself with people that you'll enjoy working with because this, I mean, at the end of the day, business is just a game. And like with a long enough time horizon, the business will be probably replaced or disrupted by another business. Like businesses atrophy over time. Just that's just the way things are. Everything's temporary. So if you're gonna do something, pick a problem space that like you're actually excited about, willing to be married to it for a long time, at least a decade. Just continuously improve and ship, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I would add the one thing also, I think I try to surround myself with people who make me a better person, whether that's pushing
Yeah.
myself to think about things differently, pushing myself to work harder, pushing myself to be more empathetic, you name it, right? I have pretty much zero interest of being the smartest or most someone in the room, because then to that same thing, where do I have to go from there? Much prefer to be around people who make me think about things differently, make me think about different approaches, do something better than me. I'm like, oh, you're right. That's a goal. That's a target. Can I do things like that? And so that to me has to be the way that you succeed in all of this. And it's true in business, it's true in personal life, right? Surround yourself with people who make you feel good, who keep pushing you, make you a better person.
I'd imagine working in the industry you're working on, it's also looking for customers that are going to challenge your thinking as well. From like inception to your company to getting onto the sales circuit to start road showing what you have. Can you walk me through that process of what that looks like and how you started to get traction and
You
I guess
mean,
maybe what the time horizon was? Yeah.
sure, so not what it looks like, but what it looked like, I guess. I mean, from the moment we
Yeah,
decided that we were going to have a company and build a proof of concept and then find customers, is that sort of the journey you're describing?
yeah. Yeah, what would that look like? Walk me through the story because yeah, it starts off in a three-person conference room. How do you yeah, like how did you translate that into your initial like sales motions to start rolling this out?
Yeah. So what's interesting is that we were founded by two people with a product background. Myself and the CEO both came from some product-minded things. Obviously, I came from a technical background and a design background. And our third partner is our COO and CMO. So not really a traditional salesperson in the mix. But as founder, that's constantly part of your journey is how do you explain what you do to other folks so that they find it compelling. We could not go to just find a corporate who's going to use our product. We had to find a bank who's going to, we were going to partner with and whose cards we were going to use to have a product. So I sketched together some fake screens that were like a click-through prototype on a mobile device, and our CEO went to Money 2020, which is a huge payments conference in Vegas every year. And he talked to folks he knew and folks he didn't know to say, "Here, we're thinking about this sort of thing." And we still have those screens there. Um, as you would hope, they are quite embarrassing to look at, but we take them out every couple of years to laugh at ourselves. You also can't succeed if you can't laugh at yourself. And we eventually found a bank that was willing to say, "Hey, we have some APIs. If you open your own account, you can plug into our APIs and you can give it a whirl, right? You're only messing with your money, so have at it, right? Your own credit card." And so we did that, and I got to working with the person who now is our first hire, but he wasn't a full-time hire then. And we built together a mobile app first, and we were only mobile at first. There's not even a website that you could do, a web application you could do this through. And so we were an iOS app where you could send other people cards. And we showed that to other banks. We showed that to potential customers. We showed that to people we knew in the startup space or anyone who might be interested in helping us out. Scraped together a few people who had potentially already had an account at this bank, Silicon Valley Bank, who let us get started, and continue to talk to investors because we recognized this was not something that we could fund out of our own pockets. And our first investor who agreed to join, Point 72, we sent them a card, and we went to a meeting with them, and they came back and said we were at Home Depot and we bought some screws or something with this credit card. And we're like, it works. I'm like, yeah, we know, we built it. We had confidence in that. And then that just started, it starts to accelerate from there because then you can start to build a team. You can bring on people who know sales better than you and who know other things better than you. And just continue talking, especially with banks, selling to banks. Just continue those conversations, getting your name out there. Because it's been our partnerships with these big banks take a very, very long time to close. And so it's just building those personal relationships, showing that we were trustworthy, showing that when we said we were going to do something, we did it, showing that our product did something better than the products they had already offering, showing that we were thinking about the problem in a different way. And then it's just speaking to enough people that it starts to become self-evident to the people who want to partner with you and go from there. But it certainly, in the beginning, there was a lot of relationship building with card networks because that's really where the source of our virtual cards are, and letting them trust three guys in a conference room, a team of 10, however you name it, to give us access to these massively powerful APIs so that we could build our product. And then spend the time building a product based on those APIs that, some of them are older, some are a little bit creakier. They're not purpose built for this. How can we build? Effectively, what we built is a layer around all of that that then enables both our product and other products to be built on top of it. And so that journey continues today. Continue to sign more banks, continue to grow our product. But I'd say the first beginning of it was an 18 to 24-month process of really feeling like, is this actually going to be a thing?
So like 24 months to start to get the first sign-ons of banks.
Signing on banks and finding end corporates who want to sign on and use this, right? Because a bank then says to its corporates, "Hey, we've got this new thing, we got this new product, this new feature on your card. Let's give it a shot." Because the way we make money is the more credit card transaction volume goes through, we make a piece of that. So we just need people charging money on our virtual cards to have the bank pay us money because we've now enabled more people to use their cards than used before. And then, we originally thought that this was going to be what's called a T&E type product, right? So imagine one of my employees doesn't have a credit card to make business for travel. I would give them a card. They could buy their airplane. They could go to a conference, right? They could buy their hotel, their conference entrance fee, all of that, and not have to get reimbursed. That was kind of the initial vision. Then, of course, COVID hit, and no one's leaving their house going to any conferences. And we discovered that actually lots of businesses want the trackability and reconciliation that virtual cards offer. And so you would use this to manage their spend at their business, amongst many other things. And so it didn't have to be travel. And so, again, you have to be open-minded and see this happening, looking carefully at the number. Oh, I see what's happening. I read the tea leaves. How can we continue to make a product that supports that type of use? How can we change our stories so that when we're talking to banks, they understand where we're seeing success? And now today, there are many billions of dollars of charge line that flow through our system. But it all started from a first $10 charge at a coffee shop for the three of us to go to many billions. It's been an exciting journey for that.
It almost didn't sound like sales or marketing. It was just socializing the idea for a couple years. And a quote that helped me understand marketing a little bit better is that the market is a place you go to market. Like you actually physically, or I guess physically go to the Facebook page, right? But like you went to the conference and you weren't selling anything. You technically had nothing to sell. You just had an idea and you just started socializing it and just kept like working the process of just getting your name out there. And that's literally like what going to market is. That is what marketing is. You're socializing, but you didn't wait until you had an actual like minimum viable commercializable product. You actually just had this prototype and you're like, okay, cool. Let's go find out if
Well,
people.
yeah, exactly. Let's find out, are people interested in this? What resonates? Has to be. That's the design process right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if we slap something together in a few weeks, that's a waste of time if no one wants that, right? So how can we show things to people, get their feedback, and then go from there? Yeah, and I think especially in B2B, sales, marketing, product development, they are a straight continuum. There are pieces that can be from all of those disciplines, which is why you need to have people in all those disciplines who are creative, who are listening, who are empathetic, right? You can't only drop in the product developer or the designer when those discussions have already been going on for a month or two.
Yeah, I think the team is really important because I think every decision you make in the product design is a branding exercise. Like, how is the customer going to feel about this when they see this? And so then that's going to interface with marketing, and then that's going to interface with engineering. Okay, how do we actually execute this experience in a way that's going to make them feel a certain way about the product? Danny, this has been a really awesome interview. I really admire your wisdom and the fact that you're able to just concisely put like the principles you learned along the way. Is there any loose ends to this conversation that you want to tie before we sign off? Like anything that's been unsaid that you feel like needs to be said?
No, I think this has truly been a really exciting conversation for me. It's always interesting to be introspective, retrospective about how did you get someplace? What are the lessons for going forward? Always happy to share that. The work that we're doing at Extend has been very inspirational to me. The team has been very inspirational. And so it's been something that's really been an excellent journey. So I'm certainly happy to have been on it, or to be on it, and happy always to talk about it because it's fun to share that journey, the world.
Danny, thanks again for coming on the show. You have a good one.
You as well. Thank you so much. Bye bye.